Exactly. And we want you to access questions. And this is all about you as well. So as we're going through, this meeting has been designed for you, not designed for us to figure out how to impress you with our knowledge and experiences and not of our constituents, but to answer your questions and to help you leave here with something of value that you can do.
Now, all the presentations and stuff will be available to each and every one of you, but there is a caveat to that message, and that is this. In order to get a copy of the presentation for today and any other materials we're going to give out today, you have to socially be involved with the group. And here's what I mean. If we're up here and you want to take a picture, put it on Facebook, tag Kenneth and myself, you've automatically qualified to get the actual presentations and stuff. On Twitter, tweet about Kenneth and myself in the group, you're automatically qualified. So, in other words, we're trying to virally grow the word about the real deal in Baltimore Real Estate Investors Association. So, how do you get access to these presentations? Socialize and tell people and tag us in your conversation. And you'll have total access, no charge whatsoever, to get these presentations. And I guarantee you, today's presentations, you're going to want it. You're definitely going to want it. So let's get started. Now, today's presentation, Kenneth and I started thinking, well, what is the basic strategies that an investor should do that has been working in 2012? And that's what this presentation is about. 5, maybe 6 different strategies that have gotten bull-cool returns. And we're not just talking about strategies, we're talking about systems and scripts.
Exactly. And these we here are things that we want you to take notes. So everybody got the paper and pen out. Okay? And okay, great. And I want you to take these tips and strategies we're going to share, and these are going to help you out whether you just started or if you've been working this for a while. And to make sure that these strategy techniques are tailored to you, your experience may be different. So then we want you to access questions that will be tailored to what your experience is, so we can make this a fit for each and every one of you here. Follow this? Follow? Okay.
Now, as a bonus for today, the first 5 that actually start communicating about this meeting will get a copy of a book I just wrote. It's called The Mad Manual, and it's on social and marketing. The first 5 that mention Kenneth and myself name in the tag will get a copy of this book sent to you by way of postal delivery. Now, let's get started.
All right.
This first part of this presentation is going to go into something that a lot of investors have been asking me. This is for the beginner investor. So we've got beginner investor information, we got experienced investor information, and everything in between. The first part is going to talk about what the heck do you say when you're talking to a seller and the phone rings. And that's what these first points are going to talk about. The first question that comes out of my mouth is, how can I help you? Now that sounds like plain common sense, but here's the reason why. Here's my thinking behind it. I want that seller to start talking and spill their guts and tell me about everything they can about their property.
Right. The key to this right here, when the phone answers, not just in this on the phone, but also in person, is you have to address what the person is looking for. This seems very simple, but many people forget this, even all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. If you look at take IBM for example. IBM, remember back in the day, IBM used to be the leader in PCs, and you either had an IBM or what they would call an IBM compatible, right? That was the leader. If you didn't have an IBM computer, it was considered to be garbage. What happened? They stopped asking what their customer wanted. And what they did was start focusing on mainframe and begin to tank. Now you don't buy an IBM compatible computer anymore. You don't need that right there. The key to the question is always ask what your customer wants, and then talk to them in that context. That's the way you make a good exchange. That's the way you make sure they get what they want, and then you can in turn find out how you can get what you're looking for.
One of the most deafening sounds a person can hear on the other end of the phone or in person is silence. So when you ask a person, how can you help you? How can I help you? And you be quiet, just talk under their eyes. Can I help you? this is what's going on, this is what's going on, and then you still be quiet. Oh, and then this is what's going on, and this is, and no more, then this is what, so that silence is definitely, and it also is a controlling manner in which you can get the person to tell you, not only what's going on in their property, but if you're really good at it, you can actually get them to tell you how you can buy their house from them.
Exactly. There have been instances where I've actually bought a home by giving somebody a vacation. There was a person, one time I wanted to buy a house, and actually the person really wanted was help moving from their current house to another house, and he wanted the first last month's rent. That's all I really wanted. So I actually hired a U-Haul truck and movers to come by, move everything out, and then take it to a new house, and met the landlord, paid the first and last month's rent security deposit, and they were happy. That's all they wanted. The key is you need to give the person what they want. The only way you can find out what they want is by asking them and listening.
Question number 2. Something plain and simple. What's the property address? The key to this question, I want to know exactly where the property is at. Based on the address, it's going to give me an idea of whether or not it's in a good neighborhood. It's going to give me an idea, if I know value, what's the value of the neighborhood.
Another thing that you also find when you ask about the property address, after you ask the person, what is it that you're looking for, or how can I help, then you break down the barrier and it becomes a sense of more of an ease. So when you later ask about your property address, many times you'll be surprised that they may have other property addresses as well. And they'll say, well, this is the one I was calling you about, but I also have these other ones as well. If we can finish this one, I can tell you about the other houses that we have. So the key is first building a relationship, and that comes from listening.
And then last but not least, it also lets me know what type of exit strategy based on the neighborhood. You can determine based on the neighborhood whether this property is a good rehab and fix, or whether or not this property is a good rental property, or whether this property should be a good wholesale based on the address and where the property is located. Key question that a lot of people forget to ask until they get to a property. Are you the only owner of the property? And the reason for this, the last thing you want to do before you go to a property to check and see if it's a good deal, to find out there's somebody else that has some type of information or some type of leverage in regards to the decision-making process. You want to deal with the sole owner or owners of the property. Your communication should be with those people or that person. That's why it's key that you know that you're talking and you're negotiating with someone that can make a decision.
Right. Here's the ugly. I've done this before where I didn't ask, are you the only one on the property? And I was very excited. Matter of fact, I let it cook out, and it was July 4th, and I got a phone call. Somebody said they wanted to sell me their property. I was so excited. I was at the cookout talking about what I love, which is real estate. Then I said, hey, guess what? I got a phone call. I want to sell me their home. I left the cookout early. They said, Kenny, you got to be crazy. Went, put the property in the contract. There was only one person. On the deed is a ETL. ETL basically means there are more members listed than that you see when you pull up an STAT record. So I saw that one person's name, saw ETL, said, I don't know what that is, but here.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. And just forgot about it. Yeah. Let the person deposit, drove away. Then when it came time to start working the deal, other members of the family started calling me up and said they were upset that there wasn't enough juice in it for them. There wasn't enough profit for them. So I said, well, who are you outside of the deal with so-and-so? They said, well, we're on the deed as well. I said, no, you're not. I said, yes, I am. Called title up, and they were on the deed. It just couldn't fit all their names. It wasn't inheritance. So that deal went bust. I asked for my deposit back, and they laughed. They laughed. I mean, they just laughed. So I never forgot it. Didn't get my money back. I was upset. I cursed, screamed, kicked, and cried. But never forgot it again. And so my lesson is always remember who is on the property. Make sure you talk to the person that's the decision maker.
Now, this could be a question or not. Remember, guys, anytime you have any questions regarding what we're saying, stop us, raise your hand, and go into it. Could you give me a little bit more information about the property? Now, the only reason I would ask that question is if I didn't get all the information I needed already. So this isn't necessarily a must-ask question. It's a sub-question if you haven't gotten all the details that you need. Specific details, such as bedrooms and bathroom, condition, and so on. So that question is a sub-question. Keep that in mind. Key question. Does the property need any work? The reason for asking this question is while you're on the phone, you're going to try to estimate the amount of repairs that's needed and the cost to do those repairs. That's the reason for asking that question. My philosophy in negotiating any deal is this. If the deal isn't a deal and meets my criteria on the phone, I will not go see the property. You do not want to waste your time looking at deals where the seller price knows that the seller isn't even willing to budge on any numbers, and you know what number you have to deal with to get to where you need to be. So I won't even go look at a property unless there's some flexibility that I can get that seller at the price that I want.
And a key thing is to understand this. When you go look at a property, you've just given something. You just give something of value, a very valuable negotiating point. And hear me out. I have a house, and I'm telling you that I want to sell this house for X amount of price point. Let's just say I say $100,000. You say, okay, you come out to the house. You've shown me that you have an interest in this house at $100,000. If you didn't have an interest, you would never came out. When you go, you just gave me something. So it is very hard to negotiate that far off of that number after you've given me the fact that you've driven to this home. If you say, well, that doesn't work for me, and I said, well, what does work for you? We continue to go back and forth numbers, and we come up with, say, $80,000. Then you come out, you see the difference over here? Now I understand you only gave me that item of value because I met something that you were looking for. There has to be an exchange. Don't be so quick that you jump out and go look at the person's house, because if you move too soon, you just, like a game of cards, you just show your hand. So you want to wait to make sure that your time is of value. You only want to go out there after the numbers make sense.
And this strategy, this negotiating strategy, these questions is geared so that you can use the information that your seller is giving you to formulate your deal. Not only that, but it's a two-step negotiation strategy, because you can say, well, Ms. Jackson, based on the information you gave me before I came to your house, you said your kitchen was in great condition. Unfortunately, it needs a complete rehab. So now I'm at a point where I can now renegotiate because I used the numbers that the seller gave me to first formulate my first opinion. And then once I go to the property, I'll use the eye test to confirm or even renegotiate.
I think you pretty much answered my question just a few seconds when you concluded there, because I was going to add, on many occasions, you ask people, well, how much work does the property need? Mm-hmm. Oh, it needs $25,000 of work. Right. Well, I know from a contractor's perspective that $25,000 could very well be $40,000.
Right.
So, you know, do we take those type of things and actually evaluate them, or just say, well, all right, I'll just wait till I see the property to make my assumption as to what the property work value would be, or do we sort of put that still together to make a decision as to whether or not it's something that we may be interested in?
And the answer is yes. You take that number as being factual until you actually go there and do the eye test. Because what you're going to do, you're going to use all those numbers that they gave you to justify, is this a deal worth seeing? And if those numbers make sense, you're now in the ballpark to renegotiate. Because now you can go into and say, no, the kitchen's going to need this amount of work, this need this amount of work, and so on and so on.
Okay.
That's the key.
All right.
You're up to question number 4, at which point will you ask them how much do they owe on the property?
When I get through the rest of the questions. All right. Yeah, challenge. And here's what I use coming up. The question is, well, Charles, how do you determine value? I use basic numbers for a new beginner. I'll give you an example. If you're talking about kitchen and bathroom needs to be replaced, I'm factoring anywhere between $2,500 and $3,500. For bathroom. For kitchen, I'm factoring anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000. For electric, I'm factoring anywhere between $3,000 and $7,000. If we're talking about doing complete ductwork with the HVAC and electric as well. So I'm using template numbers to formulate this deal. And I'm also going to give you guys the actual spreadsheet that has the template numbers you need to plug in. For those of you that do what? There you go. So I'll give you a cheat sheet to determine what value it is, but only use that as a cheat sheet. Once you get experience in this business, you'll be able to go there and say, this person said they need kitchen and bathroom, here's how much it's going to cost in your mind and in the phone. Another good way of doing it is, how many contractors have a problem with going out and giving an estimate? If you don't have a problem, raise your hand.
Free or
Going out and giving an estimate for a job that you may get.
I don't have a problem with it.
That's another key. You can always get an estimate from a willing contractor who's willing to go out and do an estimate on repairs work of a job and use those numbers. If you're not comfortable to begin with, yes. If you're not comfortable, there's no reason you shouldn't do that. But I'm going to preface this with something. The question was, should you take a contractor with you when you go out? Here's the key. If you're not out there to look at a property within 24 to 48 hours of that phone call, there's a good chance you're going to lose that deal. So if it takes you 2-3 days to get in contact with a contractor to go out there with you, there's a good chance you may lose that deal. No deal should take anywhere between 24 to 40 hours to go see unless the seller is telling you, I'm not available for you to see it.
One thing I want to also add there too, in the beginning when I was new, I didn't know, like, okay, I need to keep I need to keep point from start to finish, and finish being payday as few steps as possible. The more steps in there between start and payday, the less likely payday is going to happen. So what I've done to kind of help myself figure things out, and I said I could use this in the beginning, you want to get within anything about 80% correct. You can never get 100% correct. If you wait till 100% correct, you'll never get it. So knowing that I need to only get within 80% correct, for myself I found that 80% correct is light, medium, and heavy. Light rehab is usually anywhere between $10,000 plus or minus 5. Medium rehab is usually anywhere between $25,000 plus or minus 5. And more heavier rehab is usually $55,000 plus or minus 5. So sometimes what I do, I'm talking to the person on the phone, say this is a light, medium, or heavy rehab. Describe it to me. And although those numbers aren't 100% accurate, every time they've got me pretty much within 80% correct. So that way I have enough to negotiate the acquisition to know if it's worth me even going out. Oh, it's light rehab. What do you mean by light? Oh, carpet, paint, a few light fixtures. So pretty much for me, it's always been around about 15, 10, maybe 17,000. That's where it's usually been at. As long as my numbers are within there. If the deal is so tight that the plus or minus 5 throw me out, I don't want to do that deal anyway. Because the two got to be too perfect. And nothing works the way you write it out. You write it out as practical as actual. The things you write out is what really happens. So for myself, I found those three things always help me when I'm moving quick on the phone. Like me to say, okay, this number here, okay, 7,000.
Yeah. Right. But that's good, because now you can renegotiate your numbers.
Exactly.
That's the key. You're basing your first appearance on going out on what they tell you. Then you're basing your final offer price on what you see when you go out.
Right. Now you can go out, and when you go out, I want to preface here. I've been actually able to have someone pay me to go look at their property and tell me whether I will buy it. And we actually recorded it and had it shown. Now the reason why I didn't even, how this happened was, from the very beginning, people see you the way you see yourself. If you are a professional, they conduct yourself as a professional, go out and dress as a professional, have a business card that answers the whole full 9. Someone called me back from my marketing and said, I would like you to take a look at your property. I expressed to that person that I do this for a living, my company does this for, we've been doing it for a while, family owned, and in order for me to come out, I have to make sure it's a win-win for us all. And I will give you an inspection and let you know, but that inspection costs. They said, oh, what does it cost? I said, well, this is what it costs. And actually, I got $100 for going out there, did a top to bottom inspection, told them what the investor would pay for that, what I would pay for that, and different extra strategies. I gave them something of value.